Hi, and welcome to Bible Walkthrough. This is Wes Warner.
I'm Adam Ayers.
And today we're going to think about our death. Why don't we just die right now? What does Ecclesiastes 7 say?
Would it be better? Or should we keep pushing? Welcome to Bible Walkthrough.
So Ecclesiastes 7. Let me read it for you and listen for what it says about life and death. A good reputation is better than precious perfume. Likewise, the day of one's death is better than the day of one's birth. It is better to go to a funeral than a feast, for death is the destiny of every person, and the living should take this to heart. Sorrow is better than laughter, because sober reflection is good for the heart. And the heart of the wise is in the house of mourning, but the heart of fools is in the house of merrymaking. When I read that, I hear life isn't worth living. It's better to be sad all day than it is to laugh and play. And it's depressing. You laugh.
No, it is depressing.
Yeah.
It's very depressing.
That's what I hear. It bugs me. I don't like it. But I think that's part of the strategy of the author. I think he wants to turn life into something that is defeatable. Like anything can be defeated with his mentality and the way he turns wisdom upon itself. What do you think?
Yeah, this Kohelet, the author here, certainly is over 2 millennia before his time. He's a deconstructionist before there's any deconstructionists. And he is taking apart the assumptions of the wisdom tradition. And this is probably a post-exilic, in other words, after the exile, composition. And certainly you'll need to view, for our viewers out there, the episode on our introduction to Ecclesiastes in order to grasp this. We can't go into it too much length now. But this author is taking apart what he considers to be the misguidedness of using wisdom, this wisdom tradition, to get somewhere in life. That he sees people trying to get somewhere in life and operating under this illusion that if you just get enough knowledge and get all your ducks in a row, you're going to end up in the right place. And he's trying to put the brakes on this. He's trying to sound a cautionary note, to put up a flare, to say, wait a minute, this might not be what you think it is. You keep thinking that you're getting somewhere by doing this. Stop and look where you're headed. There is more to life than what wisdom tradition promises, because wisdom tradition promises prosperity, overflow, mastery of life, good kids, a happy countenance, everything. And he says, you have to take into account that there is this negating, chaotic factor in the world that overthrows your tidy little rules. And that the biggest chaotic factor, the great negator, is death. And this is a cautionary note to people who want to succeed, people who want to be just happy all the time. He says, you are dancing into a very dark place. So be careful. Balance your desire for mirth and pleasure with sobriety about who you are and the brevity of life. Now, some of us, and I laugh because in some ways you're on one side, I'm on the other. I think I relate a little bit more to the emo kids, going, the coffee house crew. I need a beret and to talk beat poetry in the 60s.
Maybe so.
Just that whole angst-ridden Nietzschean consumption with the things that can be lost in life does add some sobriety. but it can be capturing. And the Kohelet here seems to be caught up in this, and he's the cynic outside critiquing all of the people who are trying to go somewhere, but he's going nowhere. He's certainly running in circles. Yet he balances the sort of frivolous and pointless joy here. That's why he's saying snide remarks. He's the sad kid at the back of the classroom making snide remarks. Every time wisdom tradition says, you can go somewhere, he goes, yeah, but once you go somewhere, you're going to die. And then they said, yeah, but you can have laughter and parties and friends. He says, well, your friends are going to die too.
I hate those kids.
It's the sad kid. He really is. But the sad kid has a point. And it's to stop you and make you a little bit more sober. You're the happy kid. I don't think you can relate. But Romeo and Juliet says something about human existence, and tragedy does reveal something about the path that we all have to take.
Mm-hmm. It sounds like he just wants to pour acid over anything. Like he's got this laser vision, and anything he looks at, he can just crush it down. And I don't like that. I mean, unless he's looking at something that needs to be destroyed, but you think everything he's looking at there needs to be destroyed? We need to get rid of merrymaking. We need to get rid of life. All these things. You're not saying that. You're saying
no.
It's part of his argument, but you have to look at other parts of Ecclesiastes to see that.
Yeah, he's pulling the pendulum all the way to one side.
Yes.
In order to balance where the pendulum has swung before. It is acid because he's putting wisdom tradition through the acid bath. Mm-hmm. He's saying, once we factor in death, which you keep ignoring, it's like your best kept secret. Once we factor in death, what good does your learning do? And he's really only going to get to that at the end of the book. And you have to almost read the entire book of Ecclesiastes in order to understand any one part of it. You can't just excise out one sad stanza of Romeo and Juliet and understand the play.
Yeah, I can't. I have to read the whole thing through. Mm-hmm. I have to get to the end of Ecclesiastes to really appreciate any of this.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. So this is really a glimpse. It's a passing moment in a larger exposition, just like a passing moment. You can't understand Romeo and Juliet just by the death scene.
Yes.
You can't understand a passing moment in a movie. Maybe it's a violent scene, maybe it's a sad scene, without understanding the whole movement of this. And this is obviously a sad scene and a cynical scene and a raging against the futility of life in the face of death. Yes, that is what these 6 verses are about.
Yes.
But this is part of a larger discourse.
And he even discounts this as well. He says, even this doesn't even matter.
He goes, this doesn't even make sense. So we
have
to
read the last verses, at least, to put it in a little bit of context for the shortness of this video.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes,
so
that's okay with me.
At the end of Ecclesiastes, the author says, having heard everything, so everything he's heard and everything he's shot down, I have reached this conclusion. Fear God and keep his commandments, because this is the whole duty of man. For God will evaluate every deed, including every secret thing, whether good or evil. And even that isn't even...
It's not all that cheering.
Sunshine, dandelions, no. It's just a faint glimmer of hope of a future life with God and of God's... What? Like
eventual judgment.
Eventual judgment?
That he'll sift through what the acid of death has burnt. Yeah. But trying to look at just these 6 verses in chapter 7 is a little bit like trying to understand Hamlet by his suicide soliloquy, to be or not to be speech. That speech doesn't sum up what Shakespeare is doing with Hamlet. And yes, it is a soliloquy about death, as is these 6 verses in Ecclesiastes. It's certainly saying that death is better than life, because that'll teach the wise people not to be so arrogant. Mm-hmm. Even his conclusion is doing that. So we really have to understand there's more here than meets the eye. This is just a glimpse. Just a glimpse. And even the end is just a glimpse. It's more embedded in the larger wisdom tradition.
Pretty limited. Sounds pretty limited to me. Mm-hmm.
A dark scene in the middle of a dark movie, huh?
Yeah, exactly. I don't feel like I'm getting the whole picture when I read just those sections, but yeah, that's me.
No. So thank you to the viewer who sent this question in. Make sure that you do check out the Introduction to Ecclesiastes generally. That will contextualize this passage. But to our viewer, thank you for taking us to a very sad place. Are you a sad kid? If so, I resonate with you. He doesn't. We'll see you next time and next text on Bible Walkthrough.